Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 376 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. With just a few days left before Christmas, I thought it an opportune moment to reflect back on my beekeeping year that was 2025, the highs, the lows and the ups and the downs, all feeding into my plans for 2026. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. This week's podcast is brought to you, in part, by High Five Multi-Guard. So,
when you need a little peace of mind that your bees are safe from dangers of all kind, pesticides, hornets, wasps and mice are no match for High Five. The High Five Multi-Guard is the best one in town. Keeps your bees safe all year round. The ultimate solution has been found. It's High Five.
The High Five Multi-Guard fits nearly all beehives and makes beekeeping much easier. High Five.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this, my final podcast of 2025. So today is Sunday the 21st of December, and with the Christmas break just around the corner, it seemed a good time to finish up the podcast for this year, take a short break and recharge the batteries for the challenges that 2026 might lay before us. I've hinted previously at some exciting news and exciting plans for the new year, and these are taking shape nicely. It's something of a bittersweet change to my beekeeping, and I'll kick off the new year with a full explanation of what's happening, so do stay tuned for that. Honestly, a lot of what I've been doing recently is very much focused on those plans. And it's been a challenge to continue to release content without explaining everything we've been up to. Not long now, and I'll be able to explain what's going on, but don't fret, the videos and podcasts will still be at the very forefront of what we do, and I'm certain my plans will give me more time to create additional content for you and mentor those of you that have asked for help. With all of that in mind, and not wanting to simply repeatedly talk about oxalic acid treatments, which, by the way, we completed on Friday last week, finally, but with that in mind, I thought a walk through the last year would maybe be of interest and might give you something to think about with regard to your own beekeeping for the coming new season in 2026. I think that as winter sets in and my thoughts do turn to the new year, I'm always hoping we have a fast start, a warm early spring period, and possibly more importantly, one that persists. So many times in the past we've had the false promise of a warm spring only to be disappointed by a damp and dreary April and May. 2025 was one of those seasons that warmed up early and simply refused to cool down. It also, for the most part, stayed dry, very dry, during that vitally important nectar flow period of spring and early summer. I tried to pull up some rainfall data sets earlier, but with it still being December, the information currently available is a little patchy, a bit like the rainfall that we had during the year. Looking at my own records and those available from the Met Office here in the UK, it's fair to say that it was generally dry and warm. March was described as an unusually dry spring. April's description was dry spring conditions. May, again, dry trend continued, and so it goes on. You can all probably remember what it was like for yourselves and your own beekeeping. So through that all-important nectar flow period, it seemed to be dry. How did that affect me and my beekeeping? Well, honestly, it was fine, mostly. I went into the winter of 24-25 having reduced my colony numbers significantly after those troublesome health issues that I'd had, and it has to be said, late night discussions with my wife about how much work I was taking on. I dropped the colony numbers to around 60 hives and nukes, 40 of which, nukes that is, were already spoken for as sales for the following spring. So spring 2025. Then an unexpected loss of around 30% of those colonies really put me on the back foot. I still can't really decide what the cause was, and I don't think I'll ever really understand it. However, midwinter, maybe late January, I started praying to the beekeeping gods for an early start and continued fair weather. And that's exactly what arrived for me. We started into early spring, March time, with close on 40 colonies, again a mix of nukes and full-size colonies, but having already committed to selling 40 nukes, I was in a bit of a pickle, to say the least. In a perfectly timed spring, the nukes grew and grew and grew. Sales of nukes had been planned for May, but could easily have been sold in early April or even late March. Such was their development. That said, the May deadline fed nicely into a revised timetable that I designed to allow me to build up colonies throughout March and April, to the point that they were way too large for their nuke boxes and needed splitting early. Managing spring growth is an all too stressful time for a lot of beekeepers, and I've spent a lot of time recently talking to associations about how best to embrace this time of the season. For me, it was creating two-frame nukes from very large nucleus colonies that simply needed more space. To give you an example, a 6-frame 14 by 12 nucleus colony by the beginning of April would find itself quickly running out of room in their BS honeybees 2-in-1 nuke box. The solution to prevent them from swarming was to take a 2-frame split out of the nuke box and replace those frames with foundation. Removing 2 frames of sealed brood immediately slows down the growth of the colony, and if they have a queen cell on one of those frames, so much the better. Also, if you feel they're still too large, you can move the original nuke box to a different position in the apiary so that all of the flying bees move across to the newly created nuke with the queen cell, thus depleting the old nuke further and preventing swarming by removing all of the flying bees. It worked out satisfyingly well for me. Within a few short weeks, I had increased our colony numbers back up to 80, using splits and raising queens from existing stock. It was one of those very satisfying moments when you realise actually sometimes things do work out in your favour. The nukes were sold, and we were able to, once again, split the nukes that we had created in the spring into 3-frame nukes by early summer, and now we were fast approaching 100 colonies. There is a balance to be struck here, though. The spring oilseed rape crop was non-existent for me. I had sacrificed that spring honey crop in order to create more colonies. I could have adjusted the plan to provide a small crop of honey and fewer nukes, but actually we were well stocked with honey from the previous season, so we were never in any danger of running dry. Spring turned into summer and things just didn't slow down, and still there was little if any rain. It was becoming a worry, and by mid-June we were seeing the blackberry flowers at the fishing lakes opening and a nectar flow some 2 to 3 weeks early. It was around mid-June that I received a phone call from the farmer that grows the borage and pumpkins to say that the borage was beginning to flower and he thought we should take our bees over early. I normally expect the borage to flower at the beginning of July, so here again we were looking at maybe 2 or 3 weeks earlier than normal. Now, this isn't a problem. We can take the bees over at any time. The bigger issue was that I hadn't planned for an early borage nectar flow. And what I mean by that is that my honey production colonies were still in the build-up phase. They didn't have the large number of foraging adult workers that the summer nectar flow requires. This means, although the hives were taken to the borage early, they just simply didn't have enough flying bees to maximise the nectar flow that was occurring early. At this point in the year, I did something I've never done before as a beekeeper. I took a summer holiday. I had procrastinated for several years about visiting my youngest daughter and her husband over in America, Pennsylvania to be precise. Well, visiting them in the summer. Eventually, I figured I should maybe change my priorities, mainly due to the health issues that I'd previously encountered. It just makes you realise what's important in life, I guess. Anyway, the first week of July saw a family holiday in America. This turned into almost 14 days because of cancelled flights home, so I decided to simply let the bees do the work for a fortnight and just relax. That was until I got the first message about wasps. Fellow beekeepers helping with the borage pollination were reporting colonies under threat from huge numbers of wasps, and at the same time, of course, reporting that the borage was close to being finished, and it was only the end of the first week of July. At this point, I took a pragmatic approach to the news. I decided I couldn't do anything about it anyway, so why worry? What was going to happen was already happening by the sounds of it, so I enjoyed being taken care of for a week or two in America and loved every minute of it. We actually flew back into the UK, landing in Essex, so I could look out of the window and see the fields of borage, and it didn't actually look terribly good. I was desperate to get into the truck and down to Essex again to see what was left of my bees and the borage. It was mixed news, really, some good, some not so good. First off, the honey crop. This was the bad news. We were a long way from where I had hoped, probably only a third of what I would have expected from the colonies we had taken down there. Now that was disappointing, especially as we had moved them away from the blackberries at the fishing lakes. The good news was that due to the dry weather, the farmer had been irrigating the pumpkins so much that they not only had huge amounts of pollen, but were also giving up some nectar, topping up our lost borage honey a little. The other good news was the apparent invasion from wasps had simply not happened for me. Our colonies were really strong and had been fighting off the wasps from day one, and, it appeared, winning the battle. We had just one casualty, and that was a drone-laying queen colony that had dwindled down to, well, not much at all, and the wasps had taken full advantage of them. I think it just goes to show that normally, if you have really strong summer colonies, then wasps are unlikely to cause you any issues. Just hopping back in time a moment, prior to heading away for my summer break, I had begun a little queen rearing, using the John Harding queen rearing method. It's about as much as I want to say about it really, because I got my timing horribly wrong by focusing on other parts of my beekeeping, and by the time we had a queen laying eggs in the Nico system cage, it was time for me to head off on holiday. I stopped queen rearing with the intention of starting up again on my return, but the sudden rise of the wasp populations forced me to reconsider, as I didn't want lots of small, vulnerable queen mating nukes to be sat around trying to fight off wasps all day long. All that was going to happen was the loss of hundreds of workers and newly emerged virgin queens, so I decided not to proceed with any further queen rearing. It was a shame, but I'm convinced it was the right decision. Meanwhile, the borage and pumpkin crop came home and was extracted quickly and easily. Let's face it, there wasn't much of it. Disappointingly, we didn't manage to find an alternative location to take our bees to try for another heather honey crop, so my season felt like it ended really early this year. That's not to say we weren't kept busy, of course. The nukes we had created all required attention, and they really excelled through the fantastic weather of the summer. We fed them fondant all year round, topping them up when needed, and that really paid dividends. The fondant acts as an immediate food source for them, being consumed by the bees readily. Foraged nectar seems to always get the preferential treatment of being stored and capped for later use, which suited me perfectly. These 2 and 3 frame nukes had grown really well all summer and were now large 6 frame colonies in their own right, ready for autumn treatments and settling down for the autumn and winter ahead. Talking of treatments, this year we had a mix of Apivar and Apistan. All of the 14 by 12 nukes got Apistan, with the remaining colonies getting the Apivar. I'd love to pretend that there's some kind of black magic, sorcery, ancient beekeeping thing going on here, but the truth is I simply got my ordering numbers muddled up and had a box of Apivar left over from the previous year to use up. So we stumbled into autumn. Where did that spring and summer disappear to, I wonder? It always seems to end so quickly, but at least this year we had a really early and consistent weather pattern to keep us beekeeping all the way through. We finished the autumn treatments with 97 colonies, and this has reduced to 94 as of right now. Oxalic acid treatments are complete, and we now settle down to enjoy Christmas and the New Year, knowing we've done all we can to help the bees through to next spring. Hefting will continue, and there's still the challenge of the green woodpecker to look out for, but otherwise I'm pretty happy about where we currently find ourselves. The soon-to-be-made public plans for next year are keeping me busy right now, and I'm genuinely excited about how my beekeeping journey for next year is coming together. All that remains is for me to say a huge thank you to all of you listening on Patreon. I value your support beyond words, and I hope that you've enjoyed this year's beekeeping as much as I have. I look forward to sharing all of the ups and downs with you into the new season, and I'd like to take this opportunity of wishing you and your families a healthy, peaceful, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Well, that's it for this year. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now, and if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,600 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible, no waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2025 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey. Head over to Google and search for Patreon and the Norfolk Honey Company.